Hello everyone and welcome to my coloring corner. Today is not your typical Tuesday and we are going to be working with markers in a book. So this is the Fedorables 4 Books in 1 Coloring Collections 100 Designs by Selena Finesh. I'm not sure if that's the proper way to pronounce her name, but that's the way that she told me. Yeah. That's the way I've heard it pronounced from her, so I assume that it's correct. So we're going to use coloring book paper. We're going to use markers in coloring books. Make sure that you put something behind your page. It will bleed through. It will bleed through a lot. So make sure you have a good thick piece of cardstock, cardboard, something behind your page. Now we're going to use the Ohuhu pastel markers for this page because it just screams pastels to me. Also, I want to talk about the differences between different markers. So for example, this Arteza Everblend art marker has two different ends. This has two different ends. The difference between the two different ends on the Ohuhu marker compared to the Everblend art marker is there is a bullet nib and a chisel nib. This is a broad chisel nib. On the Ohuhu marker, you have your brush nib and your broad chisel nib. There are brush tip Everblends as well. However, they don't have a broad end. They have the brush nib and a medium nib. So it's not as wide as the broad nib. All alcohol markers have a tendency to bleed. So when you're using an alcohol marker, choose your colors, the colors that you're going to use for any particular area. Let's start with, I've got the little package, the pamphlet that comes with the Ohuhu markers. So we're going to start with, which one's this one? Viola. And it's not in there. Oh, that's funny. It's got to be in there. Am I just not seeing it? Ah, there it is. Okay. Yeah, I just wasn't seeing it. Okay, so we're going to use this one, which is Viola. We're also going to grab light pink. No, I don't want light hot pink. I just want light pink. And a blue. Let's use frost blue. Okay, so we're going to use these three and a lovely yellow as well. Let's do pale lemon yellow. These four colors, and we're going to use them for the tail. All right. Now that we've picked our colors here, now we have to go a little bit deeper for a deeper color. So just, I know this is a irritating part of it, but in the end, I don't think there's another, oh, there it is. Okay, so let's start with the purples. So we have lavender mist and violet. So we're going to start with the lavender mist. Now, When you're coloring in a coloring book, make sure that you do a test area. So as you can see, I have barely touched the page and it has bled into the full area of the page. So you just very, very carefully test where it's going to bleed to and barely touch the page. Because that is going to bleed right through to your other colors if you're not careful. And I have watched countless people on the YouTubes color with alcohol markers. I've watched lots of them, lots and lots and lots. How do they do it? I don't know. Because I have a tendency to be overly careful, I guess, which leads to bleeding. Okay, so I'm going over it with the viola and just blending that together. Now, like I said, be very careful. Now, as you can probably see, let's put that right lid on the right pen. I'm going to switch you over to the close-up camera so you can see what I'm seeing. I didn't put a lot of ink down, and I didn't go over the line with the pen. However, as you can probably see, I'm just going to zoom you in a little bit here. Just give me 2 seconds and we'll zoom it in all the way in nice and tight. There. That looks horrible. It looks all staggy to me. I don't know. Does it do that to you guys too? Like the purple looks all weird. But anyway, as you can see in this area here, it's starting to bleed out. And in this area here, it's starting to bleed over. And that's because the lighter color that I went over it with has pushed that marker out instead of pulling it in and mixing it together. So we're going to do the next one, and I'll show you that one as well. And I'll do this close up so that you can actually see how close I get to the edge. So I'm going to use Hollyhock, and I'm going to start back here. And we're just going to let that bleed out. And I'm trying to keep everything away from the edge of where I want it to be. Because as soon as I go over it with the other pink, it's going to push it to the edge. So let's see if we can do this without pushing it over the edge. Alright, now we're going to go in with the light pink. And as you can probably see it moving. Now we're just going to give it a little bit of time to move to where it's going to move to. Watch it for a little bit until it stops, and then just go in and just add a little bit more on the edge to the point where it pushes all the way to the end of the black line. And that's the best way I have found to color with the alcohol markers. So once again, I'm going to go in with the robin's egg blue, and we're going to try not to get too close to the edge. Especially with the, you don't need to do this so much with the alcohol papers or the cardstock, the really heavy cardstock. However, with coloring books especially, you have to be really careful with how thirsty that paper is going to be. Now we're going in with the frost blue. And again, just be really careful how close to the edge you get it so that it doesn't completely bleed over. Now we're going to go with our yellow, and we're going to go with lemon chiffon and pale lemon. I think we're going to start with the pale lemon. Like that. And then it's going to bleed out all the way to the edge of your area. Okay. So there is our 3 colors on coloring book paper. Now we're going to put this aside for a moment, and we're going to show you the difference between coloring book paper and this is the Nina cardstock. Oh, excuse me. I've got a bit of the sniffles today, so I apologize in advance. So we're going to start with these colors once again. So we're going to start with the purple. Now this one is Lavender Mist in the Ohuhu markers. Now as you can see, I can get fairly close to the line. without going over, and it doesn't travel as far. Now let's see if it'll mingle, if it'll mix instead of travel with the lighter color. So as you can see, it's mixing together. It's not pushing it too far over the edge. It is traveling a little bit though, so just have to be careful and do a test on your paper of which direction you're going to be moving that pigment. So as you can see, it's bled through here, right here. So right there, it's bled over the lines. So not a big deal because we're going to be adding more colors there. Now if it was to bleed this way, it'd be a big deal. But because I'm moving the ink down, it's just going to bleed into the areas next to it. So again, start back a little bit when you get close to the line that you're mixing with or going into. Then move it in. That top one was a really small line, so it's really difficult to stay away from the edge. But as you can see, just going a little bit close to the edge here, it's already spread to the edge. So when we go through with the lighter color, you may find that it's going to bleed over that edge. Just have to give it a couple of seconds for it to pick up and move to where it's going to move to. Hopefully, as long as you don't go over the edge too much, you can blend that in. When you get down to the edge, just very gently touch your ink area without going over it. And then we're going to use our pink. As you can see, it pushed a little over the edge there, but everywhere else is fine. Now this one here is a little bit different because we are avoiding those dots as well. So once again, just going around almost to the edge, not completely to that edge. It will bleed to the edge, so you don't need to go all the way to the edge. And it will bleed even more so in coloring book paper. So try to stay further away from the lines. Now we're going to finish this egg in this paper. Like I said, this is the Nina 65-pound cardstock. And the Ohuhu pastel markers. They are an alcohol marker. Now as you can see, the pink is starting to go into that center of that dot. Shapes are hard to, especially points, they're hard to work around. Let's see if we can push that blue back into its spot there. Okay, so as you can see, it has overtaken all of those dots. So we're going to need a darker color to go into those dots with. So let's grab, actually, let's show you how to eliminate that. So grab your colorless blender and just go over those spots. Now once that dries, you can go over it with another color and have it still be the way you want it to be. You can also do that on areas such as this, pushing that color back up. Now the only problem with doing this is you have to let it dry before adding your next color. Otherwise they're just going to bleed right into each other. So we'll let that dry and then we'll add our yellow. But first we'll go with our pink here at the bottom. Again, trying not to go over that line because we don't need a pink rabbit. And just watching how far it travels. Another thing that you need to be careful of when coloring on a paper that is not designated specifically for alcohol markers is A, you need to worry about the bleed through. B, you need to worry about the travel, the spread of the marker itself. And C, you need to worry about oversaturation. If you oversaturate your page, you can end up tearing your page. So be careful with that as well. And as you can see, I've got an overabundance there, which is bleeding into the next area. So again, we can go with our marker and we can push behind. Now I do not have a piece of paper behind this, so you can definitely end up staining your area if you don't have a page behind it. But if I did have a page behind it, you would see where all of that ink went to, because it pushes it out behind it or it pushes it into the color that you've already put down. It pushes it into a least resistant area. Now if I go over this before I let it dry, this is what's going to happen. It's just going to soak it in. And it's just going to spread it everywhere that I've put that marker down. Which is fine. It's not a big deal. But if you're doing a combination or you don't want that pink in your yellow or that yellow in your pink, then it can be a problem. For this, visual is not a big problem. But as you can see, just moving or just putting that marker down, it creates an orange tone because the pink is pushed through. And I didn't let it dry and didn't make sure that it was all sopped up, which again isn't a big problem. But when you're doing another or a different type of picture, a different type of page, you may find that, especially when you're doing blends and things like that, you may find that you have a lot of colors mixing together that you don't want to mix. Okay, so that is alcohol markers on the Nina colored paper. Now this is printed on the Express It. This is the Express It marker paper. Now we're going to go with light prawn, and we're going to do this banner. So we're going to do light prawn in our shadow areas. And as you can see, that does not move anywhere. It doesn't bleed out, it doesn't move anywhere. But you have to work quickly with this stuff. So I'm going to take this one here and I'm just going to blend into it. Like so. Now I want that light prawn to come out a little bit further. Like that. And then we go back into it. And you can blend, as you can see, you can blend those colors together, creating that soft edge. Now we're going to be careful that you don't lose your lids. Now we're going to take a deeper pink. We're going to blend it right in there as well. Around the edges. Now we're going to combine those. So as you can see, you can play with that paper and add color and not have it run out of the lines. And that's why I always suggest, however, it is not feasible sometimes. Sometimes it's really expensive. You know, sometimes it's just not financially feasible to buy the Express It Copic marker paper. Now, I do know that Belinda has a few other different papers that she uses, and so does Emily, that work just as well as the Copic marker paper, because I've seen them use it. However, I don't know what they are, and I know that she sent me a message, and I could not find it before I decided to come and do this. I did look, but I will find that out for you for the next video. So as you can see, I'm going through and just going right over top, wetting that edge and blending it together. And it's very simple to do that on this paper. However, if you don't work really quickly on the other paper, you will find that it does dry fairly quickly. And getting that blend, that wet edge blend, where it just seamlessly moves into each other, is a lot more difficult on the coloring book paper. And then we're going to take our orange tone here. And then our darker pink. And then our lighter pink again. Just blending it all into one. Now I will tell you that if you do go over the lines and end up, like for example here, I went over the lines. That is my own doing. You can, like I showed you before with the other other paper, you can erase that very easily just by using your blender. I'm going to put those down. Wrong side. Just like that. Alright, so let's learn another thing. Let's say we want to do a thinner blend. Okay, so let's start here. So I'm going to start here. And I'm just going to add that alcohol marker blender pencil or pen. Blender pencil. I'm going to add that alcohol blender. And then we're going to take our purple, let's say. And as you can see, it just moves it right down the line of marker that we put down. Now we can blend it out a little. Move it around just a bit. Wet it down and add the next marker. And we can blend those together and blend that down. And it gives you a softer a bit of a softer blend line. So just wet the edge and then blend it out. only thing you have to be careful of this is if you get over the line, it's going to follow it over the line. So then you gotta push it back. Like that. So when you're putting down your colorless blender, even though it's colorless, you still have to be careful that you stay in the lines that you want the marker to stay, so that when you do go over it, it doesn't follow that colorless blender out into the rest of the page. As long as you remain in the lines on your picture, that black line will usually on this marker paper stop the ink from going any further. However, if you give it a way out, such as going over the lines, it will follow the path of least resistance, which is the area that you went over the lines in, if that makes sense. Alright, I'm going to do this area here. And it does give you a bit of a let's just throw that pen anywhere. A water colory type of effect. Keeping that line and that edge wet because you've put the wet marker, the blender marker, underneath. So that is the other way that you can blend these markers, is by using your blender. Your blender can be used for several different things. It can be used to erase your boo-boos. It can be used to blend your colors together as you're layering them down by wetting the edges. Or it can be used to let's just throw those anywhere. Good Lord. It can be used to lighten your tones, lighten your colors. For example, say I want to lighten this pink. Okay, so I've got hollyhock here. And say I want it to be a little bit lighter. What I can do is I can take my pen, my blender pen, and I can color the tip of my blender pen with that hollyhock. And then I can use the blender pen to lay that color down. And when it dries, it'll be lighter than the color I started with. I'm just taking that bit that I had rubbing up on the edge there. You can also, didn't realize I was that far off. You can also darken it a little. and then spread it out. And it gives you the ability to make a new color if you so choose. The only thing is that you have to make sure that you get it in the right spot. Otherwise, you end up with ink in the wrong area on your pen, and then it doesn't color. But yes, you can utilize your blender marker that way as well. Basically, as you can see, as I've gone through and added the blender marker, this marker has gotten a little bit lighter at the tip. And basically what you do is you can either lighten this tip or darken this tip and use it until it's light again. Or you can use this tip which is still a little bit lighter because of the alcohol that you've added. Like so. Like that. Now, in order to get this marker off of your nib, so as you can see, I've got marker on the tip of my nib. You just take a paper towel and you just wipe it until it's clean. Just like that. So, as you can see, the marker is on the paper towel, not on the nib. And that's all we have to do. So, there is your 3 different types of paper and what you can do with the 3 different types of paper. Now I'm going to switch over to the main screen so we can take a look at this a little bit closer. As you can see on the back of the marker paper, it's gone through, but it has not damaged my surface, which is great. I was able to blend them all together. However, I went from dark to light to dark again, causing that separation. Over here we did dark to light, causing that separation. Now we could easily fix that by going over it with our blender pen and just lightening down the edges a little bit. And blending that out like so. Now, the reason why I wanted to show you this is the fact that, I added a lot of different amounts of marker to this page, and there's no bleeding anywhere on this page. This one here, we didn't use a lot of marker on it. However, you can still see where it bled into each other, and you can still see the difference between the light and the dark. The reason for this is because I wasn't able to add or move enough of the pigment together to blend it and not have it spread all over the page. As you can see on the back side here, you can see where it's starting to spread outside of the egg, where we don't want it to spread, which is a bit of a problem. when you're trying to color an entire picture. Now, this paper here, which is the coloring book, did a little bit better than the Neenah cardstock. It did bleed through, which we expected it to. That's why we have the sheet of paper behind it. But it didn't bleed completely outside of the edges. However, to get a proper blend, as you can see with the pink, it didn't blend as well as with the blue, yellow, or purple. The reason for this is because of the lack of ability to move those together without bleeding it out. So, marker paper is definitely always going to be the best. Of course, if you are going to use, say, a coloring book, and you're going to color in your coloring book, make sure when you're doing your edges that you start way back away from the edge, so that when it spreads, it has somewhere to spread to. If you don't give it somewhere to spread to, it's going to spread over the line. Keep your edges wet as possible. Make sure that you have a page behind your paper so that when you do start to blend, you have that ability to soak up any excess. Now, if you find that your blend isn't moving that ink as much as you'd like it to, just keep going until it does, until it gets it to the edge that you want it to be. You can always come back through with the dark if you remove too much of the dark. And I'm having to work this a little bit more than I normally would because I was a little bit too cautious and didn't put enough of an edge on it. So I'm just going to come back through gently with my marker, follow that edge. That I've created there. Not going too far past it and letting it push itself out. Just follow that edge, keeping it wet and letting it just flow. Like so. So as you can see, that pink has stayed within the lines. We have been able to blend it together, giving it a little bit of the dark, a little bit of the light. Any areas that look like they've got a little bit too much dark, just go over it with the light, it'll push it through. And there we have it. So make sure that if you're coloring in a coloring book, make sure that you give your marker enough space to expand into the area that you want it to color. If you're coloring a full, just one color area, like for example this heart here, I just want it to be one color. Start in the center, work your way out, and just do little dots. Let it expand and move down. And don't go straight to the edge. Just keep on dotting in the center of your area so that it moves it out to the edges. If you find that you aren't able to get into any little tight corners, just very, very gently touch it like this. I'll switch it over to the close-up camera here so that you can see what I'm doing. So I'm starting off here in the middle, just moving it into those areas. And just gently dabbing until it fills in the area. Make sure that you don't get too close to that line with your marker itself. Otherwise you will end up pushing it over that line. And there we have it. One very, very pretty pink heart. Now, if you're just straight coloring with markers, great, fantastic. Just make sure that you remember that even with straight coloring, you have to be careful of the lines. Even if you're not going to blend and that sort of stuff, you still have to watch where your marker is going to be hitting that area. Because it will bleed over. If you're going to go over top of something, make sure that you let the previous colors dry first. So for example, I'm going to go over top of this because I want it to be a red. So I'm going over top of it, but I'm still being cautious of the edges, and I let this completely dry beforehand. But because that saturation is already there, it's not going to bleed as much as if that saturation wasn't there. And that's how we get a nice red heart. All right, guys, I hope this was helpful at all. These are just little things that I have learned along the way from watching other YouTubers. Of course, there are many, many YouTubers out there that are very proficient in alcohol markers, way better than myself. Of course, make sure that you hang out and take a look at them as well. We have Belinda from Color with Faithful Girl 1978. We have the wonderful Emily Illustrator, sorry, and so many others. Poet Spice, goodness, there's so many that are really, really, really good with markers. Corey from Colorfully Optimistic is another one that's absolutely awesome with markers. So check out them as well during this wonderful Alcohol April, where we're going to play with markers because I'm not very good with them and I want to learn as much as I can. And I figure, we'd play together. All right, guys, until tomorrow, which we will be continuing our picture that we started on Saturday with our alcohol markers. We will continue this on Wednesday and hopefully finish it off because, yeah, I haven't worked on it. I did do a little bit on these two here, but otherwise I haven't worked on it because I've had a migraine for 2 days. And hopefully it's gone and I can actually start working on the things. Yeah, so we'll be doing that tomorrow. We'll finish that off, and then, of course, on Thursday, if we're not completely finished that, we'll do some final touches. If we are finished it, we will do final touches on something else. I have started on the Discord before my head started pounding through the roof. I have started the cowboy. So we may do some finishing touches on him if I don't finish him on Discord. If I finish him on Discord, we might do some finishing touches on this unicorn. The joy. All right, guys, thank you all very much for watching. I hope you have a fantastic day. I hope this has been a little bit educational, if not entertaining. Um, of course, always remember to like, comment, and subscribe to any YouTube artist that you watch. Um, it does not only help our self-esteem, but it also helps boost the wonderful things that YouTube does so that people see us. Otherwise, always remember to relax, color, and stay safe, everyone. Until next time, bye bye for now.